Okay, well, I am Chelsea Groves. I am the granddaughter of Loren Schumacher, and we are recording November 28th, 2024, at our Thanksgiving Day family celebration. So, we are going to start by asking you where you were born and to tell us about your parents and their occupations.
I was born in the country 2 miles from Larose, Illinois, and no one would know about Larose, but it is 30 miles north of Peoria. So maybe that will put it in perspective. I was born in a farmhouse. Uh, I weighed about 8.5 pounds, and my parents was Louis Carl Schumacher, born 1897, and Rena Lucille Schumacher was my mother. She was born in 1899, November the 20th, and they were my parents. My mother died when I was 13 years old, so I didn't have a family that long as far as raising me.
What were your parents' occupation?
Uh, at, at that point in time, 1931, in that area, most everyone was farmers or someone supporting the farming industry.
Mm.
And my mother was a housewife. Uh, she went to high school in Washburn, Illinois. Graduated from high school there. My dad went through about the seventh grade, uh, and he probably had some difficulty in school uh, because his parents both spoke German constantly. So he knew German when he started the first grade,
Okay.
and the teacher knew English. So that's how he got started, and I anticipate that he had some difficulty in school because of that.
What do you know about your grandparents?
Well, I knew 3 out of 4. My mother's parents was Charlie. Let's see, SC would be uh, Samuel Charles. Uh, he was a farmer. He dealt a lot in horses, big horses, uh, and my his wife, my grandmother, was Laura Hoskins. Her maiden name was Hoskins. To my recollection, born, raised around Winona, Illinois, which is in that particular area
Mm-hmm.
in Illinois. Illinois, or these towns were that I mentioned was in basically central Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And my other grandparents, her name was Mary. Her maiden name escapes me right now, but her name was Mary. She died in about 1926, give a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather, Ed, lived to be in his 70s, I think. And he remarried to a lady by the name of Anne, I think. And he was a farmer, and his dad was a farmer, but I didn't know his dad. I did know his mother, so that puts a lot of generations
Mm-hmm.
on. Her name was Minnie. She lived in Bloomington, Illinois. Now, she was the wife of C.K., and they had a big family, as people did in those days. They had a lot of children so that they could take over farming and take over the housewife for the mother. My grandfather Ed came from a very large family, 8 or 10 brothers, sisters. That whole family was very musical. They could go out on weeknights, Saturday night, Sunday, and play barn dances. They played fiddle and piano and mostly by ear. My grandfather Ed told me once that he took his fiddle and went to the gate where they lived to catch a ride or get to um, the teacher who could uh, show him about the violin. And he stopped at the gate, turned around, went back in the house, said, "I don't want to go to school to learn how to use the violin." But a lot of those brothers, sisters played violin, seemed to be the main instrument, and piano. And those barn dances were held in a barn, uh, mainly new barns. When a neighbor had a new barn or reconditioned barn, usually initiated it with the barn dance.
Mm-hmm.
So that covers my grandparents.
Do you know when they came from Germany?
I do not have much information on that. Uh, it would have been CK, I think. I did not have know him or have a good connection to that time, but I
Mm-hmm.
would say in the 1860s, somewhere there.
Okay.
And at that time, my mother's dad, uh, Charlie McCulley, and also Ed Schumacher, they pretty much uh, inherited, or they took land from the government and agreed to till it and build it and take care of it. And a lot of them just inherited land
Mm-hmm.
free. And that was the way it was, especially on the McCulley side. My mother's dad and his sisters, there was also a big family. But his dad rode horseback from Pennsylvania to central Illinois and established 80-acre farms and was able to give these 80-acre farms to all of his kids.
Wow.
So they got a pretty good start,
Mm-hmm.
probably much better than people who didn't have that benefit.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I had one, Rosemary Lou Schumacher. She was 5 years older than I was. She was born in 1926. She went to the one-room schoolhouse that I did, but she was 5 years older, so she went to the one-room schoolhouse and was in the 8th grade alone through grade school.
Mm.
Then she went to LaRose Community High School 4 years and took 1 year off of her education and worked at Caterpillar Tractor Company in Peoria, saved up money so she could go to Bradley University in Peoria. And Bradley University had a good music department, and that's what she was interested in. She did do 4 years at Bradley, graduated, and then taught band in high schools in that area 1 or 2 years, then married George Lyle from Peoria, Illinois, and she taught high school band in high schools in the Peoria area.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military and why you decided to join?
Well, good question. As I said, my mother died when I was 13. My father went to a little town close to where we were living and hired Elsie Schoaf to come and be housekeeper and cook and so forth. So Elsie came relatively soon after my mother died. We'll just say a month or two. And as time went on, it took her a little while, but she was a very dictatorial lady. Mm. And consequently, she took over everything, including me. So she wanted to raise me like she knew her brothers had been raised in about 1915. She came from a pretty big family. She had a couple sisters and 4 or 5 brothers, but her husband died in the flu epidemic in that area, central Illinois, he died of the flu epidemic shortly after they were married. So she was a widow at that point, but she stayed on the 80-acre farm that the Schoafs had and maintained. There were 3 Schoaf brothers, so she stayed and cooked and kept house for one brother. One brother lived in LaRose, and the other brother died of the flu epidemic. And consequently, she was in charge of all of that because Irving and Billy, they just tended to do what she told them.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of fell into that life mode of um, being boss, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And but getting back to why I went in the service, uh, I lived under those conditions 5 years. Uh, right at that time, 1950, June the 25th, 1950, the North Korea invaded South Korea. So United States got involved in that, and so I went in service shortly after that. But that was certainly uh, a a needed change for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I actually had this all planned because before I ever left to go in the service, I guess I was a senior in high school. Uh, my dad, Elsie, and I at the table eating. There was never very much conversation at the table because everything was at odds. And my dad was submissive. Whatever else he wanted, why, he did, and he was for. So I was the third person out.
Mm-hmm.
I was abandoned, and but I stayed there and worked and worked and worked until I got to be 18, and I knew I needed to change, and the war came along, and I asked. Uh, Let me back up. Elsie asked me, "Well, Loren, you're graduating from high school in a few months. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to go to a technical school or join the service." And she said, "Well, that would be just fine. You'll stay here and do what we tell you to until you're 21 years old, and then you can make your decisions." So I knew I was trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, I knew that I needed to do something. So I was, uh, that particular day that I joined the service, I was in Washburn there plowing corn. My dad had one tractor, and I had a tractor with uh, we were plowing corn, and uh, I had planned all this out because my uncle took me to the county judge and introduced me as to what I could do, what I could do, and what I couldn't do. And it was plain facts that if you're 18 years old, you can join the service.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought that was a good deal. So, anyway, my dad and I came in for lunch, and I kind of tarried there, and my dad went back out, and he was plowing corn, well, about a mile back on the back side of the farm. And I stayed at the house, just waited a minute, and I thought, now is the time. I went to just started walking on the other side of the barn through the cornfield to the road, gravel road, and walked and ran to Washburn, Illinois, which was 4 miles. And I caught the bus to Peoria. I had enough money for a bus fare because it wasn't very much, and my dad would give me $1 or $2 every once in a while. So I saved that. I had money to take the bus to Peoria, and I cannot tell you what the feeling was once I broke out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got on the road and was walking and running and caught the bus in Washburn to Peoria, 30 miles, I'm free. And so I went to recruiting stations there, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Marines gave applicants uh, 3 years to be in and then be discharged. The other services all wanted 4 years. And at that particular time, I thought, oh, I'd rather take the 3 years and then be out of the service. Well, I did that, and I joined the Marine Corps in Peoria, Illinois. And the recruiter asked me to be back at the train station there in Peoria, in yes, in Peoria, to go to Chicago for my physical in 4 or 5 days. So that night I went and stayed with my sister, who she and her husband lived in Peoria, so I had a place to stay. And the next day I went back to my aunt and uncle's, told them how it all transpired, and I worked for Vernon Henry in Larose, Illinois, driving a truck, hauling gravel and so forth. But then I did take the bus to Peoria in a few days, caught the train from Peoria to Chicago, a steam engine, of course, and went through the physical there that day. And by the evening, I had completed my physical, and they gave me orders to report to boot camp, Parris Island, South Carolina. I got on the train, a steam engine, and went from Chicago down through Washington, D.C. to Yamahassee, South Carolina. And the DIs met us there in a van. And that's where you knew you were in the Marine Corps, because they were hollering at you, "Get off of that train," And it was the introduction to the Marine Corps, and they took us to Parris Island, South Carolina, and the rest of that day we learned how to make our bed and duck walk. And that was it as to how I got in the service.
So, once you got there, what was the most vivid part that you remember of that training? Maybe the best part, the worst part from that first experience?
Well, a good question. It was a lot of things. There was an indoctrination into the Marine Corps. They had classes being taught by senior Marines about the Marine Corps, what they had done all through the years, where they were established, like Tunn's Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1775. The Marines were organized by, I think it was 4 men in the tavern, and things like that. All the traditions and the flag and all that. But the better part for me was the rifle range. Boot camp turned out to be about 12 weeks, and 3 of those weeks we were out in another area at the rifle range. 3 weeks. The first week was classroom, studied weapons, M1, BAR, Thompson, grease gun, pistol, everything. Classroom, tear them down, put them back together. Tear them down, put them back together. First week. Second week was dry fire. Okay, we're going to do some dry firing. Uh, no ammo. You're going to get in a prone position. You're going to stand up with your rifle in all different positions so that you get in a right position, and you're taught how to breathe and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Dry fire, mm-hmm. Dry fire, dry fire. The third week was range. You had the M1 and you had the targets, I don't remember, 500 feet or 500 yards down there. So we've got a line, we'll say, of 30 people with M1s. We've got the same amount of targets, and we're going to fire at those targets, and prone position. And so you'd sight in and pull the trigger, and the people manning the targets would wave a flag as to how you did. And you look at that flag, and it would be maybe 8 inches to the left of the bullseye. And this DI that was teaching you, he'd say, two clicks to the left. And you do that and fire again. Pretty soon you hit the bullseye. And that was all of the firing, was teaching you how to fire that weapon, how to breathe when you fired it, how to look through the sights. And then they'd take this group and they'd go down to the targets and bring that group back and let them fire. Mm. So that's how it was sort of a rotation. And but I really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. At least the live fire and being able to hit the bullseye.
Do you have any instructors that stand out to you in your mind that you remember?
I probably remember my 3 DIs, not by name, but I remember them because I respected them, mm-hmm. because they were good DIs, mm-hmm. Opposed to other platoons. Sometimes the DIs were pretty off the mark and caused Marines to do things that didn't seem right. Mm-hmm. The example that comes to mind, I knew of a platoon that when a guy messed up, he dropped his rifle or something, if he messed up, the DI would tell him, go to the barracks and get your locker box and put it on your shoulder and jog around the parade field. Mm. Well, that's a little excessive. Mm-hmm. So my point is, there were a few DIs that were excessive like that, kind of mean, you would say, but our platoon was good. Had good DIs, they were good instructors, and they put our platoon through boot camp in good shape.
That's great. What was your first assignment after boot camp?
First assignment was from Parris Island, South Carolina, to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. that is the home of the 2nd Marine Division. And we went up there on the train. You got there and they assigned you uh, within the 2nd Marine Division. And at that time, the Korean War was going along, and they withdrew people, not the whole platoon, not but individuals, into drafts for assignment to Korea. So they were always drafting people to go to Korea, and we were filling in those holes. And that was my first assignment. I'll go a little further and say that I got there December of 1950, and about March or April of 1951, our battalion was selected to go to the Mediterranean because the Marine Corps keeps a battalion of personnel in, at least at that time, in the Mediterranean, and they keep rotating them out from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, into the Mediterranean. So that was a opportunity for me and our company battalion, because we got to board ship at Morehead City, North Carolina, and went across the Atlantic to Gibraltar, and had Liberty, what they call Liberty. The ship docked or tied up to the dock, one or the other, whichever was available, and then you could go on. Half of the people off the ship could go to the town on Liberty. So that happened for the organization I was in. That tour of the Mediterranean was 6 months. So during that time, we went to from Gibraltar to France. I remember Cannes and Gulf Juan. From there to Naples, Italy. From there to Athens, Greece, and around to Africa, and a few islands there that we did amphibious landings on, because that was what the Marines do. They do amphibious landings, and sometimes getting back on the ship, you climb up those ropes from the P boat that's down on the water, and you pull yourself up, and that's all new experiences, and I enjoyed that. And went back to Camp Lejeune, and was there a couple of months. Went home for Christmas. I dated Norma for the first time during that Christmas of 1951. On a Thursday night, we went to Toluca to the movie, and there was, we dated Thursday night, and then I went to the McCulley's. I went to Elsie's family for raw oysters. Friday night, I went to Glenn McCulley's, who is the brother of my mother, and their family. Saturday night, and Uncle Glenn took me into LaRose, and I caught the bus to Peoria and went back to Camp Lejeune. I went back to Camp Lejeune, and it wasn't about a week later, the first sergeant called me in, and he said, "Loren, you're going to Korea on 18th replacement draft. So, okay. I turned around and went back to Illinois for about 3 weeks. Dated Norma and caught the plane from Chicago to Los Angeles, and the bus from Los Angeles down to Camp Pendleton, and processed for did about a month processing for going to Korea. And did I answer your question?
Yes. What was your dad's response? You told him you were going to Korea when you were home for Christmas?
Pardon me.
Your dad, did you tell him you were going to Korea?
Oh yeah.
And what was his not much of a reaction?
At that point, nothing.
Yeah.
He was very non-committal. In fact, Elsie, I did put a minor relationship back with Elsie and my dad through a process, but it was never the same. It just couldn't be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to Korea on the 18th replacement draft.
What do you recall from your time in Korea? How long were you there in your experience there?
I was in Korea 12 months. And during those 12 months, you're assigned to a rifle company. I was assigned to Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st Division. And it was a very good platoon. There were basically three things that you did when you got to Korea in a rifle company. The first is you're on the main line of resistance, which you may catch live fire from the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You may go on combat patrols, everything at night. Nothing during the day, very little. Everything is done at night. Patrols, you go out on an ambush, and those are some of the things you did if you were on the main line of resistance, plus at least 50% watch all night. Just make sure no enemy was coming your way or anyone's way. The second thing would be in reserve, and that meant that been on the line 30 days, maybe 45. We're going to reserve, going back here, and you had a squad tent, and in the wintertime you had an oil stove, you had an army cot, you had a air mattress, you had a sleeping bag, you had maybe a radio. You get maybe one or two stations out of Japan, but good duty. That was the good times. March up to the dining hall, take your mess kit up, go in through the line, you dunk your mess kit in a boiling hot water, make sure it's clean, go through, fill your mess kit and get your food, eat, go out the other end, same thing, wash your mess kit with a brush or something, and go back to your squad tent. What you would do when you were in reserve, a lot more classes. They'd give class, you'd take your weapon and break it down, or teach incoming people what it was going to be like. First in the morning, have roll call, everybody fall out for roll call. Your platoon sergeant would take report, make sure everybody's there, and then maybe go to breakfast and come back for 3 or 4 hours that morning and have classes or something to keep you busy. Drill. Uh, we had a lot of drill, and you had DIs that were real good at giving drill. I mean, they knew, and they'd have you so you were just perfection, and others maybe weren't too good. I could give drill, and I was fairly good at it. And one thing else you would do, they take you out in the trenches, and maybe uh, dig those out a little bit and just improve the architecture or the width and depth of a trench. And did that answer the question?
Yes, so you were on for about 30 to 45 days, and then you would be at this place for how long?
30 days.
And then you would go back.
Yeah, you kind of rotate from online to reserve, back to online. And when you were online, you may be selected to go out to outpost, and that was not nice. And I've been on many of them. You go out to outpost, and maybe you'd be out there for maybe a week, maybe nothing would happen. Maybe you'd go out there and all hell would break loose. I was on many outposts, but the first one that broke loose was outpost Yoke. There were 37 of us on outpost Yoke. The second night, we were hit by a Chinese battalion. 2,500, 3,000 men. 37 of us on the outpost. They overran us before we knew they were there. But I was next to the command post. The command post would be Lieutenant Little and a sergeant something, I can't think of his name. They would be in the command post with the radio man and keeping the platoon officer advised as to what was going on. So there were two men in the command post, and I was right beside. I was about 10 feet from the command post, and I looked out, and there was a Chinese coming over the concertina wire. Threw a grenade, and I no more than threw that grenade and some artillery round from the Chinese, and I think they had fired. You just have to believe that they fired to hit the command post. They missed the command post and came very close to me, like about 10 feet, and it hit a sort of a dugout. So I got the blast, but I didn't get the shrapnel because it fell in a hole. And the blast knocked my ears out and my eyes out, just dirt. And I crawled in the command post, and the Chinese were still there. And to make a long story short, the Lieutenant Little called the Captain Fuson that we were overrun, and they fired VT, variable timing. They called our artillery group, which is kind of in the background with all these shells and so forth. And these shells, VT, it gets about 100 feet above where it would drop and it explodes. And it annihilates everything. We were all in bunkers and outposts, covered up and everything. Well, the Chinese was right. They didn't. It was dark. They didn't know where any of us were. Well, they didn't know where most of us were. Example, I was in the command post, and we were not. We heard Chinese, but they didn't find us. And but that sort of eliminated the Chinese from overrunning the outpost and staying there. And by morning, Chinese were gone. They evacuated us back to the line and took most of us to medical. I went to a regional medical facility and cleaned my eyes out and cleaned me up a little bit while we were there. I went to a couple of movies, got hot chow. About the 5th or 6th day there, the doctor came in. He said, "Loren, I think you're ready to go back to the main line of resistance." Okay. So I did, and that was on about July the 4th. I can remember that because there was so much firing on like midnight, July the 4th. U.S. fired hundreds, thousands of rounds, just kept firing, celebrating the 4th of July. And so there were 7 Marines killed on this outpost yoke. And what it was about as big as a football field. And on this end, in a couple places, they had machine guns. Well, if you were the Chinese, what would you like to knock out first? The machine guns. So they come up and drop grenades in those and killed most of the machine gunners.
How would you say your time in combat changed you?
Well, that's hard to say, but certainly you have a different outlook on a lot of things, and maybe mature faster. I don't know, but it's some of that is beyond explanation. There's so much happen so fast that and some you don't know about and some you do, but I'm lucky. That's the main thing I would say.
You walked away feeling lucky.
Real lucky. All through my military career, I think I was lucky because I was joined organizations that I wanted to. I got out of the Marine Corps and into the Air Force, got a good assignment.
Can you tell us about that change? Why the change from Marine Corps to Air Force, and when was that?
Well, that's a good question. I got out of the Marine Corps August the 25th, 1953. Norma and I had corresponded with each other, and at that point, well, a couple months before I was to get out, we had started talking marriage, which was fine. But in the Marine Corps, it's mostly infantry. 90% of the people are infantry, or they're all infantry, and if they need them for some other desk jobs or something, they'll pull them out. But basically, the Marine Corps is all infantry, and as I was doing my last few months in the Marine Corps, I wanted to go home and get married, and also I couldn't get out of the infantry. I tried to get guard company, something, couldn't. So that helped me decide to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Some water. Do you want some water?
and I was on a couple outposts like that where similar things
Mm-hmm.
happened. So, bottom line, those three things, reserve, MLR, outpost is by far the most dangerous as far as artillery incoming and so forth. And in our particular platoon, and this happened on the outpost we're talking about, Lieutenant Little was awarded a Navy Cross. That's one of the highest awards given. And another individual that was in our platoon got a Medal of Honor because he basically rolled over on a grenade so it wouldn't explode and kill or maim his comrades. And he just died recently. I've got some information on him. He was from Detroit. Anything else?
Okay, so tell us, maybe on that note, the friendships, camaraderie that you remember while you were serving. Anybody stand out? Any particular relationships that were memorable?
Well, it's not, we don't have that many right now, but after I got out of the Marine Corps and even the Air Force, we corresponded with a lot of comrades out of the Marine Corps. There was a guy named Beverly D. Walker from Alabama, and we exchanged Christmas cards for years. We still know people that we served with in the Air Force, George and Millie. Can't think of their last name, but you form a lot of friendships, and some of them you maintain for a good while, and sometimes they drop off. And by the way, Cody's dad's stepfather was in Korea. He was in the 7th Marines Regiment. I was in the 5th. and I don't know much about his activities there, but I would like to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he's about a year older than I am, so I don't know if he went to Korea immediately or if he went on one of the drafts.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about Korea, we went there and uh, kept the boundaries, so to speak, the 38th parallel. You've got North Korea north and South Korea on the south side. But South Korea is South Korea is obviously one of the main industrial economies
Mm.
in the world. And when some of us went through Korea up through Seoul, uh, there were one-story bedrooms, one-story buildings. The rest had been blown up,
Mm.
you know. So, and I remember General in the Marine Corps, Chesty Puller. He was commander there for a while, and he told the Chinese uh, when we go up through Seoul, if if that costs the life of one of our Marines, I'll lower this place to the ground. And that's about what happened. But war is not nice. But you know, it comes up occasionally, and it's got to be done. What do you think, Drew?
Can you tell us, from Korea, you married Norma, and then you joined the Air Force? So tell us about your
Yes.
Air Force.
I came back from Korea and was reassigned to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I've been in and out of there, and that made me, you know, I'm ready to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing that you asked about why I got out would be that before I went to Korea, I was at Camp Lejeune for, after we came back from the Mediterranean, I was probably there 3 or 4 months, and I had an opportunity to work in the first sergeant's office for a little while because I could type.
Mm.
And I saw many of these older Marines that had gone to Korea initially come into Camp Lejeune and report into the first sergeant and say, "Well, I was in Korea, but I'm here now to join the Second Marine Division." And the first sergeant would say, "Well, I think your company's down in the Viegas, down in Puerto Rico somewhere. We'll get you on a plane tomorrow." Well, my wife and kids are out in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, the Marines. If you're a Marine, you got to be Marine number one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no number two to it.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions?
So Air Force started in what year? When did you join the Air Force?
June of '54.
Okay.
I went home to LaRose. Norma and I got married. I got a job as soon as I got there with my cousin's trucking company, Schumacher Trucking. I went to work. and I didn't particularly like it. And later on, it it came to where they got a contract where they were hauling bricks from Knoxville, Illinois, which is near Gaines, near Galesburg, Illinois. Uh, and you drive those load of brick to Chicago, and that was a long ways. And everything was fine driving the truck, but you get to Chicago, and well, there's the truck, there's the bricks. I'm here to unload it, I guess. And you had a brick tong, and I did some of that till I got tired of it, and I didn't think I wanted to continue that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a classmate of mine, Willis Schoaf, came home from uh, the Air Force Base in South Dakota, and we were talking Air Force, and the Air Force looks pretty good. So consequently, I went back to Peoria and joined the Air Force and did 17 years and enjoyed every part of it. And Norma was with me all through that except 1 year.
Can you tell us your route of time in the Air Force? Where you went first, second,
Sure.
the sequence?
Sure. I didn't have to go through basic training because I came in from the Marine Corps. So I took my physical in Chicago, and I was up for reassignment in the Air Force. My assignment came down Chanute Field, Illinois, about 100 miles from where Norma was, and she was pregnant with Larry. And so I went down there, and I was assigned to military police because I'd had all this training in weapons and so forth, guard duty in the Marine Corps. So I was at Chanute, we'll say 2 years, and then was reassigned, and Larry and Tina were born there. Then a possibility came up for McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas, and I took that. We moved our trailer out there and everything, and we were there 5 years. After 5 years, I was reassigned to um, Nuasur, Morocco, uh, near Casablanca, 15 miles. We were there a year and a half. The base closed. Had to be reassigned, so I went. They reassigned me to Zaragoza, Spain. So Norma and I drove up with the kids, drove up through Tangiers and crossed on the Mediterranean and drove up through Madrid, all that. We were there maybe a year, and that base closed. Reassigned to Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana. That was in '64, I think. And then to Loring Air Force Base, Maine in '67. And then to Sandstrom Air Force Base, Greenland in '68 and '69. That was 1 year isolated. So Norma stayed here. And from there, I was reassigned to SAMPSO at El Segundo. I think that's right, yeah, El Segundo Air Force Base in Los Angeles until June the 30th, 1971, and I retired and came here.
So where did you go when you retired?
Norma and I, kids came back to Irving here, and I interviewed with J.C. Penney's because I knew I was getting out of the service looking for a job. So at that time they had yellow pages phone books, wide, big. So I got one of those before I ever retired and went through there, and I wrote about 100 or 125 applications for employment, mailed them to Dallas. I got a reply on some. I got a reply on the one from J.C. Penney's. So I called her when I got here, went down there and had a nice talk with her, and she said everything's just fine, but we're not hiring right now. And the old man Zen took me down there, Norma's dad. We left there and came by downtown Dallas, and I thought, what was the building there? Employment Center. I don't know if it was Texas, something Employment Center that I had to, was supposed to check in anyway. So I went upstairs to 12th, 13th floor and said, I'm here. I'd like to see the gentleman that handles military discharge personnel. And they said, yeah, he's on the phone, but he's available in just a few minutes. So I went back there, met him, and told him what I was looking for, and he said, say, I just had a call from EDS, and they're hiring people, and that's a good company. You ought to interview there. And I said, well, what kind of a job do they have? And he said, they're building a security department. I said, well, I'm looking for some kind of accounting and so forth. Well, he says, they change people around there. You ought to go down and talk to them. So I did. I went to talk to a recruiter I talked to 4 or 5 recruiters. They said, one of the last ones, they said, well, bring your wife down. We want to talk to her. So I did. Norma had to get her hair done, but she did good, and they hired me, and I was there 25 years.
What was your job there?
Pardon?
What was your job there?
My job was a lot of different jobs.
I was going to say, did it change over time?
I started in security. It turned out to be a job like a desk where you come up the Exchange Bank building, the second floor, and you come in, and there's a security person there. And that security person is supposed to make sure that no one unauthorized should get in there, and just some jobs like that. It was a 24/7 job, and I was the 3rd security officer that they hired there out of 4, and they hired one more after me. But I worked in that about 9 months, and I went to accounts payable as manager of that. I worked maybe a year and a half, and that was a hard job. It seemed like the whole accounting department, nobody liked their job, nobody liked to be there. You know, how do I get out of here? So I just told my manager, I'm not getting anywhere here. And so he took me back down to my first person that had hired me and then employed me in security. And the uh, the company was growing like that, and they were building a new building, telephones and everything. So I interviewed all the telephones, and I marked all the office furniture with a number, and wrote it down and did some office service kind of things. And then after that, uh, after leaving there, I went to uh, relocation of employees, which meant that there were a lot of employees being moved around because every time we'd get a new account in Los Angeles, California, we moved these people, including their computers, and the employees got to be moved, and the computers got to be moved because it's all intercompany. So I did that for a number of years. Probably, I don't know, I started 64, no, 74, and did that through uh, my end of tour there. And I took an early out when I was 64 years old. I mean, you couldn't hit it any better. That's why I told you I feel very lucky on a lot of things that I did because, you know, here I was 64 years old. They had to retire, and they gave me they had an early out for a lot of people, and I qualified for that. So they gave me 6 months pay and health care for 18. I don't remember all the stuff. And I went right to work for Allied Van Lines out here the next day and worked 12 years there doing inventories on furniture of people who were moving and sent that to the gaining organization so that they could fund do the funding for moving that person. How'd we do?
Great. So, as far as organizations or reunions, what are things that you have gone to in the maybe distant past that have been like veteran organizations or reunions?
Yeah, good question. I went to, let's say, 4 Marine Corps reunions. One in Texas. What are some of the cities on the coast down there?
Did you go to Pigeon Forge?
Yeah, that was one
Pigeon
of 2 of
Forge.
them. I don't remember. It was on the Texas coast. We went to a Marine Corps reunion. That was the first one. The second one to Boston, and then a couple to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Met a lot of Marines that I had known and worked with. And then in the Air Force, let's see, reunions. I don't recall any reunions Air Force personnel.
Can you tell us about your Purple Heart Award?
Well, yeah, we covered that uh, a little bit. That came about when we were on Outpost Yoke,
Mm-hmm.
and I was right by the command post, and I went out to man the trench so I could see out during the night. We either had 50% or 100% watch, and I saw these Chinese gentlemen coming over the concertina wire, and that's the first thing anybody saw there. And I threw a grenade out to uh, do what I could, and I just got that done, and that shell came in and rammed right close to me, and just uh, I couldn't hear or see for a good while, and I didn't really know I was going to get nothing was ever said about it, and when I went through the regional hospital and got well, and they sent me back to the line. It was okay. Pretty soon I got a call from the company commander. They said, Harold Fuson wants to see you. I said, my gosh, what did I do now? And so I went up there and very cordial. And he said, here's your Purple Heart for getting wounded on yoke, and I've got it in our living room now. That was 1952. So,
What would you say to future generations who would hear this interview or your story? What would you say to future generations of maybe people who want to be in the military or just are encouraged by your perseverance?
that's a good question because everybody's different and would find a different situation in the service. But as long as stay calm, stay collected, uh, pay attention what's going on, and do the best you can do. That's, I think that's it.
Is there anything about your time in the service that you want to share that we haven't talked about?
No, not just some unusual things. When we were on med cruise, we got liberty every once in a while off the ship and went into town, and that happened in Athens, Greece. And so a couple of friends of mine, I think there were 3 or 4 of us, went in on liberty, and this little Greek kid, 15 years old, 12 years old, just kept following us. And he kept looking at my wrist, and I couldn't, I didn't know what he was up to. And so time went on, and finally I figured out he wants to buy my watch. Well, I got to thinking, I had 2 watches, got one on, I got one just laying back with my stuff. So we started talking about price, and I thought, well, this watch I think my sister gave me, and I got one back on the ship that I bought for $30. I'll just say $30. So I said $30, and he said, "Oh, good." So he got a roll of bills out. Boy, I had a chunk of Greek money, and I gave him the watch, and I had the money. And we went on. I went on with my friends. Got back down to the dock where we were going to catch the P boat out to get back on the ship. I went in this little, well, we just say a 7-Eleven, something like that, And I think it was a bar, and I said I'd like a Coke. Okay, went back and got a Coke, took the top off, set it down, and I gave him some money, and he said no, no. And so I figured, well, maybe it wasn't enough. I gave him a little more, and he said no, no. And I showed him what I had, and he said, "That won't buy Coca-Cola." So that's just how you can
You
get
live and learn.
took if you don't
Yes.
stay aware. Of course, it was foreign money, and
Did he give you the Coca-Cola?
no, he didn't. He did not. Good question.
Like, did you get the Coke? Any other stories that come to mind?
Pardon.
Any other stories like that come to mind?
I can't think of them right now. All the way across the Pacific, there were, if I was on the 18th replacement draft, and there might have been 2,000 Marines on that, plus sailors on the ship. It was it wasn't a Navy ship. It was can't think of it right now. But anyway, you had to get out of your quarters so that they could clean the bay, and all that. So we spent a lot of time up on deck with penny poker. So I probably crossed the Pacific Ocean playing penny poker, and just passing time like that. Took 2 weeks to go across, and 1 week across the Atlantic. Merchant Marines, that's what I was trying to think of. That the ship took us across the Pacific, and on the way back, something a little different. It was basically the same thing, nothing to do. Play penny anchor, penny poker or whatever. But a friend of mine and I volunteered with one of the cabin crew, a member of the ship, and we got a job painting. So we went, a good many days, because it took like 2 weeks coming back across. So we did a lot of painting. We had rollers, and he provided us everything, of course. And but the good part of it was we got to eat with the the captain in the crew quarters, and that was a big thing.
That's awesome.
Didn't have to stand in line, for an hour getting to the food line and so forth. So it was good. It was different. Anything else?
No, I think we're grateful to hear just more about your life and your days. So thank you for sharing.
You did great. You did great.
You did great.